My friend and I, Joe Cole, and we got robbed by two Crips in our neighborhood, which is a Crip neighborhood. And my theory is, with 19 years of having all that time to kind of kick it around, is that the locals probably saw me on MTV, and I was on MTV. You can be broke and on MTV. You know how that is.
Sure.
Well, I saw you on TV. Yeah, I can't pay my rent, but
Right.
yes, you saw me on TV. I was at that phase of my career where I was broke ass, but I was kind of famous.
Visible, yeah.
Yeah. And so at one point I realized, well, some people might have the wrong idea about me. Like, wow, he's on TV, he must have money. And so at one point, a very well-known record producer came over to my little place in Venice to listen to my new record, which I had on cassette. And he listened to it, and he parked his Bentley in front of my place. And he came out of the house, and I walked him to his car, and the locals were looking at his big Bentley.
Right.
And I went, wow, the neighborhood knows that a guy with a Bentley just visited my place.
Right.
And I wrote in my journal, I'm going to get popped. I'm going to get robbed.
Right.
And 48 hours later, got robbed. And so I called it. And so my theory is...
And they shot him in front of you?
Yeah, well, no, not. Yes, they shot him. No, not in front of me. It was basically a stick up, two guys, two guns. Gun was at the back of my head, and I don't know where the other fellow had his gun positioned on my friend Joe. We were lined up, me, gunman, Joe, gunman, and told to go into the house, which, I assumed was we're going to go in, we're going to get robbed, we're going to get executed, pillow over the head, one behind the ear. And so I said, well, we're dead. And it was I was not afraid, not that I was being brave and getting ready to do some kind of Bruce Lee action. I was just in that moment going, well, this is how it ends. And so as I opened the door, I said, how can I slow this down? And I saw the VCR deck next to the little TV. I went, I'll give him the VCR, because now you're just like grasping at straws. You are trying to stay alive. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'll give him the VCR, and they'll go away, and I'll wake up from this dream. And at that moment, I dropped my grocery bags. I put my hands back up as I was told to do, and I heard shooting behind me. And I went, wow, gunshots sound really strange in this house. And then the gunshots stopped, and I noticed my legs had taken the rest of me through the back of the house. And the legs had said, Henry, we are leaving now. And I went through my little room, over through the backyard, over the wall, to the alley, ran up to the Pioneer Chicken on Lincoln and Brooks, and I called the cops.
Yeah.
And I said, look, here, we just got robbed, and I did not know what happened to my friend Joe. And the cops picked me up, tackled me, threw me on the ground, and cuffed me. I said, no, but I'm the guy who called you. And they said, you fit the description of the guys you called about. I went, okay, well, right. So they frisked me, and they brought me back to the crime scene. And that's when a cop told me that my friend Joe had been killed. And so what I think happened was I heard scuffling sounds behind me. Either Joe tried to take the gun from the guy or tried to run. But eventually, he was shot twice and was killed. The guy shot at me twice, and one went right next to me and lodged in the door jamb to my left. The other one went high and to the right, and the slug was found in a box of Alka-Seltzer in the kitchen. It ricocheted around and actually landed in a box of Alka-Seltzer. Sounds so odd, it has to be real. No one ever showed me any bullet slugs, but I did get to see the bullet hole and its extraction in the door jamb. And the next day they took me back to the house, and the detective said, stand where you were standing. I said, okay, well, it was between those two grocery bags, which are still there. It's a crime scene. And I said, I was right here. And the guy went, wow, that guy tried to kill you. And the bullet is like right next to me, around heart high in the door jamb. So I was lucky. The guy, pistol, if you've ever shot, you can hit the target, but if you're on the move and if the target's moving slightly,
right,
the math of all of that changes. It's pretty easy to shoot at a piece of paper at a range, and I do a lot of shooting. It's not so easy when the thing even moves. All of a sudden, that whole thing changes,
right.
And that's how a lot of people get to go home. That's why I'm still here, because the guy missed. And so, upon hindsight, what happened to Joe is part of the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, the lack of education in this country, racism in this country, the how half of this country fought the Civil Rights Act, how we fight literacy, it seems. We fight wanting to know more.
But in that moment, it was just you lost your friend.
Yeah, so there's that analog sadness, but I have to try and look at a bigger idea. And if I were to be able to get these two guys in a room, would I kill them with a ball-peen hammer? Some nights of the year, yeah, I can go there. But most of the time, I just would like to tell them how you killed it. Well, you killed an unarmed guy. I don't know how that's cool. But you killed one of the coolest and most strangest, wonderfully strange people I've ever met. He was, when anyone dies, of course, he was the best guy. He really was an odd dude and a really good guy and a very harmless person, very gentle guy. Whenever he would fight, he'd get his ass kicked.
Yeah.
He wasn't good at it,
yeah.
But he was a good guy. And, you saw like bands like Sonic Youth and Hole dedicated whole albums to him. He had a lot of friends, like a lot of musicians liked him. He's just a good guy. And he died for nothing. He died for the two $20 bills in my pocket. And it didn't have to be that way. So as an older guy wanting to make my country better, well, that means we have to bring back the death penalty. That doesn't stop people from killing. Well, we have to ban guns. That doesn't stop people from killing. They'll just find popsicle sticks. You have to maybe raise them the way that I was raised, or taking a leap, perhaps how you were raised, not knowing how you were raised. All I know is there's no way you're going to get me to rob a liquor store.
Right.
I'll beg before I'll steal, and I'll beg before I'll mug somebody.
Sure.
I'm just not going to do it.
Right. Now,
so how did I turn out that way?
Right.
So
it's cultural and it's generational and it's economic.
All of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what as a guy who's 50, like that matters. But that's what I want to address as until I die, is I want to get at that and turn that around so you've got a country full of more people like me, literate, who don't want to rob a liquor store or stick a gun in someone's face.
And that is the struggle that goes on forever. I mean, these things, that abyss that looks back at you, is the darker elements of human nature that has always existed.
Yeah, and the bad forces capitalize on the fact that humans are easy to scare the living hell out of. And as I've said for many years, when the going gets rough, the average get conservative. And it's really easy to make someone, like dumb, rope a dope and go, no, any black guy with a beeper, he wants to rape my daughter. It's how they recruit people to the Aryan nation. Like, do you want your daughter getting raped by some black guy? Well, hell no. Well, then come with us.
And there's also cultural, dogma within the black community that generates gangs as well.
But it's also, and it's, again, society, it's how you protect yourself, but it's also how you recruit people for the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And
it's honor, it's community, it's fear, it's all sort of malignant when it gets to that level. A
perceived enemy.
Right.
And that's what the right in this country has done a really, really good job of doing. That when you go to those Tea Party rallies, and I've not been, but when you see the reportage, it's all about the enemy, and Glenn Beck is telling you. I rented a car in Virginia a few months ago, and so I listened to 2 broadcasts of Glenn Beck. I went for the whole 2 hours. I did the whole thing. 2 hours going down to this place I had to go to.
God, you must have been seething.
No, I was just kind of tripping on like, wow, that guy's nuts. And it was all about this whole Big Brother. We're being watched. It's tyranny. Like, wow, man, you don't even know what you're talking about.
No, he doesn't.
And the people who are going, yeah, they don't know what you're talking about. And the enemy you're swinging at really doesn't exist. But you're going to take it out. You're going to see it in me. You're going to see it in the black guy. And so all of a sudden, your countryman is now your enemy. And it's, divide and conquer. And they've really done really, really well with that. The other side that fights that has not done a very good job to combat it.
Right.
But because it's the harder job. You're asking someone to share. You're asking them to be fair and humane.
Yeah.
When someone says, no, my bootstraps, pal, society gave you your bootstraps, the streets to drive your bootstraps down, and the leather to make the bootstraps. So shut up about the bootstraps. My father was one of those bootstraps guys. He was an economist, and did come from a big family, was working at like 4 a.m. as a 9-year-old.
Right.
He really did come from a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
But he wore it wrong. Everyone else was just trying to get by and get something from him. And that's what we've got in this country. When some people say, well, government is the problem. For me, government is the last defense against the free market. I need the government to defend me from Chevron,
So you
who are not cool.
No.
They're never going to be cool.
You believe that democracy can and will continue to evolve in a positive direction?
No, because as you make things desperate for people, it's harder for them to be kind, to be generous, to be altruistic. It's hard when your food bowl is empty to say, yeah, I got to share half of my what? Half of my foreclosure, half of my nothing,
Yeah.
half of my kids are hungry. When there's nothing to share, all of a sudden you tap into a primordial fear that gets really scary really fast. I don't know if you've ever been frightened in that kind of way. I have a few times, and it's thrilling. And if you're intellectual enough to kind of ride it out,